Hello, you are welcome to our lecture. Today's lecture is on chordates, and we are going to discuss about the class Reptilia and the subphylum Vertebrata and the phylum Chordata. The class Reptilia consists of the reptiles, the group of vertebrates that are referred to as the reptiles. Now, what are reptiles? The class Reptilia or reptiles are referred to as tetrapod vertebrates comprising of the amniotes that are neither birds nor mammals. Now, what are tetrapods? Tetrapods are basically animals that walk with 4 walking legs, a pair of hind limbs and a pair of forelimbs. And the organisms in the classes Amphibia, the class Reptilia, the class Aves, and the class Mammalia are tetrapods, have members that are tetrapods. So the reptiles are tetrapods. They have 4 legs to walk with, a pair of forelimbs and a pair of hind limbs for movement. And they are vertebrates. They have a vertebral column. So the amniotes that are neither birds nor mammals are said to be the reptiles. Okay, what are amniotes? Amniotes are organisms that lay eggs that contain an amnion. The amnion is a double membrane that contains liquids or fluid within that enables the embryo to survive on land. Okay, so the amniotes that are neither birds nor mammals are classified as reptiles. Now, these reptiles have some features that distinguish them from other tetrapods or even other vertebrates. Living reptiles can be distinguished from other tetrapods in that they are poikilothermic and bear scutes or scales. Another word for poikilothermic is cold-blooded, or you can also use the word exothermic or ectothermic. Now, what are cold-blooded organisms, or what are poikilothermic organisms? Now, poikilothermic organisms, particularly the reptiles and amphibians, are organisms that are incapable of regulating their internal temperature. So their internal temperature is determined by the temperature of the surrounding environment. They are unable to carry out homeostasis. So they are said to be cold-blooded. Just as it's seen, the lizards would have to bask in the sun to increase the internal temperature. So reptiles are poikilothermic. That's one distinctive feature. And they bear scutes or scales. Just as it is with the tortoise and tortoises, the tortoise and tortoises bear carapace that have scutes that make up the carapace. Then most reptiles possess scales in their skins as integumentary structures. Unlike amphibians, reptiles do not have an aquatic larval stage. Reptiles are found throughout the entire world, from the steaming deserts to the inner city to hundreds of feet below the ocean. Okay, they are found everywhere. Even in the house, you have wall geckos and you have lizards close to houses. So they are also found in the deserts, but they are actually absent from the polar regions and mountain tips. And the obvious reason why they are not found in the polar region is because the temperature there is extremely cold. And since they are cold-blooded organism and the temperature is too cold, they can not really warm their internal temperature. And that prevents them from surviving in such environment. Now I want to look at the general characteristics of reptiles. What are the general characteristics of reptiles? All living reptiles share certain fundamental characteristics. Among the most important characteristics that reptiles share is the fact that they lay amniotic eggs. All reptiles, as well as birds and mammals, are amniotes. And what are amniotes? Amniotes are vertebrates that develop from an embryo within an amnion, which is a double membrane that permits the embryo to breathe effectively on land. That's an advancement from the amphibians. The amphibians do not have the capability to uh, lay their eggs on land because their eggs cannot, the embryo can't survive. So they will have to lay their eggs in water. But reptiles, being amniotes, are capable of laying their eggs on land. Okay, so as amniotes, the eggs of reptiles are surrounded by membranes for protection and transport that adapt them to reproduction on land. Now, this is an amniotic egg of a reptile. The reptilian egg has an amnion, which is a membrane that enables the embryo to survive on land. Now, this is the embryo. They also lay leathery eggs, eggs that are made up of leather and are very strong. The amniotic egg also has a part that's called the chorion, the yolk sac, and then the allantois. The second general characteristic of reptiles is that reptiles have dry, watertight skin. They possess dry, watertight skin. Their skins are dry in contrast to those of the amphibians. The reptiles also exhibit thoracic breathing. And thoracic breathing is carried out by expanding and contracting their rib cage to suck air into the lungs and then force it out. The capacity of this system is limited only by the lungs. So the reptiles breathe by contracting and expanding their ribs. When the rib expands, air is drawn in. Air is being inhaled. Carbon dioxide is inhaled. And the the oxygen is inhaled. The oxygen that goes in is being absorbed into the blood, carried by the hemoglobin and circulated around the body. Okay. Then when the rib cage contracts, carbon dioxide is breathed out. Carbon dioxide is breathed out. Okay. So the expansion and contraction of the rib cage is what facilitates the inhalation and exhalation that's carried out by the lungs during respiration. So they carry out thoracic breathing. And because of that, some reptiles that are actively running, like the lizards, would have to hold their breath. And because of this complexity, some lizards have also developed what we call buccal pumping to enable them breathe while running. Okay, so they face that constraint of running for a long time because of the fact that they exhibit thoracic breathing. The fourth distinctive feature of reptiles is that they are all ectothermic or cold-blooded. The reptiles are all ectothermic or cold-blooded. Another word for ectothermic or cold-blooded is poikilothermic, okay, or exothermic, meaning that they can't regulate their body temperature. Their body temperature would have to be regulated by basking in the sun or by living in warm environments so that their internal metabolism can be enhanced. The fifth feature is that they have skin covered in scales or scutes. Reptiles have skins that are covered in scales or scutes. Scutes are patches of bony or horny skin. Now here, you in the turtles, these are patches of bony structures, and these are called the scutes. The legs of reptiles are short or entirely absent. Most reptiles possess short legs, and sometimes the legs are entirely absent, like in the snakes. The snakes lack legs. The snakes lack legs. And most species of amphibians lack legs. Okay, they did not have feet for locomotion. The second distinctive feature of the seventh distinctive feature of reptiles is that most reptiles are oviparous. Most of the reptiles are oviparous. They lay eggs, but some are viviparous. Typical examples of viviparous species are the vipers and rattlesnakes. The vipers and rattlesnakes keep the eggs in the mother's belly until they are hatched. Okay, the eggs are not laid. They are produced having a leathery shell inside the mother until they are hatched. But there are also some viviparous species, some squamates that are known to be viviparous. Now, these squamates that are viviparous include the common lizard known as Zootheca vivipara. Zootheca vivipara. Viviparous species produce living young instead of eggs from within the mother. And these ones usually have some kind of placenta-like structures, rudimentary placenta that enable them to keep their young ones inside and hatch them alive. They give birth to young live ones like the mammals. Now this is the picture of a viper. It's a viviparous reptile. This other reptile, the rattlesnake, is an ovoviviparous reptile. Then the Zootheca vivipara is a viviparous reptile. It gives birth to live young ones. The eighth distinctive feature is that the egg yolk of reptiles is very rich. The ninth, the shells of their eggs are leathery and strong. They lay leathery and strong eggs. The 10th distinctive feature is that the incubation of the eggs is caused by the warmth of the ground. The incubation of the eggs is caused by the warmth of the ground. Whether the eggs are laid in nests, in the case of alligators, or buried, like the sea turtles and other reptiles like the lizards and snakes, they do not go and sit on their eggs. They do not incubate their eggs, but the eggs are being incubated by the ground. The reptiles do not have larval stage. The hatchlings, the reptiles that hatch from the eggs, actually look exactly like the adults. They grow to become the same type of organisms as adults, unlike the amphibians that have aquatic larval stages. Thanks for listening. So our next lecture will now be on the the anatomy and physiology of reptiles.